Hey, everybody.
Howdy.
I just made it almost on time. I forgot that I am going to be presenting Bob's PowerPoint. And so I was on the wrong computer to do that. So I had to hustle upstairs and get on the right computer. And we should be recording. Yes, we are recording. All right, we'll get started. Is Bob joined the call yet? I don't see him.
I thought I saw him on there.
Oh, there he is. Yep.
I'm here.
Bob.
I'm just trying to punch all the buttons here I'm supposed to punch.
So far, so good. So I've got the presentation. I'll share that in a minute. And
Okay.
Ron, who else was on the agenda today? I don't remember.
Clark,
Oh, Clark,
Oh, that's right. Okay.
and I don't see him on here yet.
Okay.
he's
Well-
probably ran over for pizza.
Oh, here he is. He's joining right now.
Hello, this is Clark. Am I here?
Clark, you're here. Good job.
Well, there's too many too many links in the couple of emails you sent.
Yeah, I noticed
got
that
it.
too.
I ended up on a YouTube thing. So
I watched that program from last week, huh?
evidently, yeah, I'm on the regular thing now, but I gotta send the right link to the iPad for the thing later.
Okay.
I'll be gone for a second.
That's all right. We will get started, and we'll get started with Bob here in a second. Bob, I'll get this thing going and share my screen, and then you can just give the beep like the old film projectors when you want the slide to advance.
Just give the beep, like, next picture.
Yeah. Just remember those days. Come on. Let's see here. What do we got to do? Share my screen. Here we go. Screen 2.
There's Doug. He looks like he's taking a nap.
I think
Okay, that should go to the iPad.
All right. Did I spell your name right, Bob?
Yeah, you did. You did better than Clark usually does.
All right. All right. Well, I made my first challenge of the night, so that's good. So let's see here. If I can advance this, will be good. We'll get going on this. Here we go. All right, Bob, go ahead and I'll mute everybody else. And
Okay. Are we ready?
give me 1 second here, because I'll have to unmute you then. Kind of looks like.
You had him unmuted.
Am I still unmuted?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. Oh, how did we get around to there already?
Yeah, sorry. Must be me clicking.
Went backwards.
There you go.
There we go, yeah. All right, I think we're ready, Bob.
Okay. Okay, well, go ahead and hit the first one. That's my part
Yeah,
of my engine terminal and main yard, and what I termed Vinton Junction, which doesn't really exist except in my imagination. I modeled the Rock Island, 1967, and I modeled my railroad after a line that actually did exist, ran from Vinton up to Iowa Falls, and then from there on up to actually Sioux Falls eventually. It was fairly heavy travel at one time, and it kind of, as their track deteriorated, it kind of went by the wayside. So the time that I model is probably didn't have much traffic on it, but I increased the traffic just to increase the play value of all the guys that show up to run on it. Clark operates on it regularly. Ron stopped one time and got a quick preview of it. He didn't get to run it though. He didn't stay long enough. Maybe next time. But we start out at Vinton Junction in the main yard. You can go to the next slide. Show the run down. One of the things that you'll notice in a couple spots is that red ballast on the main line. Some of these sections were moved from another model railroad I started. Company I worked for was moving me around, and I started building stuff in sections so I could at least take it along. There's a mill over on the left side. That's the back side of another mill that you'll see eventually when we get around the railroad here. Okay, go to the next one. We're down at the exit to the yard. Go ahead and hit it again. There you go. That line running off, yeah, there you got a semi-naked lady because some kid stole the top of her bikini. And that's Clark in the rowboat there. He's trying to catch supper for him and Eileen. I don't know if he's going to have any luck or not, but the line that ran off there in the darker ballast is just a hidden line that goes off into the Chicago stage. That's another piece of the red ballast. So it's an older section. And there is a little bit of an outhouse down there. You can see that in the bushes. I've got a few of them hid around, but usually nobody notices them. And one of my wife's deer herds, because she likes deer, except when they come in and eat her flowers. Okay, on to the next town, which is on the line I model was Garrison. Sorry, had a mental block there. And it's about like all the other towns on the line. You get an elevator, a team track, maybe a feed and seed place, an oil dealership. Most of the stuff is scratch built. There is one factory design preservation there off to the right. I've got a few of them still left. Most of the stuff I've been trying to scratch build. And up towards the top, there's a Campbell depot. And I noticed in one of the emails today, there was a picture of a depot. I forget the name of the town it was even in, but it looks like Campbell copied it when they put that kit out because it looks about like the same one. Go ahead on up to the next picture. Yeah, that one looks pretty much like the Campbell, like the one in that email today. Go ahead, next picture. And there you get a departing view off of the back end of the caboose. I do have a fair amount of scenery. I've had people tell me I need to update all my trees because they're all just parts of weeds, but I've got a couple thousand trees and I ain't about to start rebuilding trees. Okay, next slice. And there's a hobo camp. I've got several little scenic elements that I've put around. Some people notice them fairly soon. Some people operate 2 or 3 years before they see them all. And a few more deer. My wife keeps buying those things, so I got to find a place to put them on the layout. On around the curve to the next town, which is Dysart. This one is one of the few towns that actually does have an elevator that I modeled that does sit in Dysart. The rest of the stuff, there's a Campbell oil dealer and downtown deco kits that I modified there, those two cement block buildings there. Okay, you can go on to the next one, which should be a departing view, kind of heading out of town. That downtown deco was supposed to be one building in an L shape, and I decided to make it into two and cast a rear wall for one of them, one of the walls. And that one there again, it's got an oil dealer, an elevator, a team track, pretty much the same thing on just about all of the towns here, if they still exist, and a couple of them don't even exist anymore. Okay, next picture. That was, I think, a Campbell Purina Chow's feed mill that I modified to fit in the space that I wanted it in. And as you can see, I have started over the years, I've got away from the dyed sawdust to the ground foam to finally static grass. But the static grass is on about a ½ an inch of other stuff that I already put down. So you can do excavating it. You'd find all kinds of things underneath there. On up to the next slide. The next town is Traer. Yeah, over the hill and over the river and through the woods. Go ahead to the next one. Nothing there much other than one of the many little streams I've got. Another downtown deco building that I modified off to the left. Scratch built oil dealer building. Another team track, elevator, oil dealer, same old stuff. The silos is something that I built quite a few years ago. Clark thought I was hallucinating. And one time on a trip with him, we were going down the road and I looked over in the field and guess what I saw? An exact duplicate of those silos. So I had to poke him and say, see, I wasn't really hallucinating when I built that thing. And next shot, and all the grain elevators are scratch built to some extent. Some of them actually did exist somewhere. I saw pictures of them, but they didn't exist in the towns that I put them in. The rock work is old plaster castings that I made out of molds, homemade molds. On into the next picture. This is one that I just did. I had an old cornfield there that I didn't like the looks of. So I decided to make it an oat field that's about ready to be combined. I think I used either 6 or 8 millimeter static grass, only in a more normal color. The elevator, the silo off to the right is one that I made. Clark took a picture of an old clay tile silo and copied it, got enough to print it out to wrap around a tube. And there's still a lot of those standing, or there was a lot of them back in the 60s yet when I modeled. So I decided I had to have a few of them on the layout. So I've got 2 or 3 around on the layout in different spots. This is one of the few farms that I've even bothered trying to build, but I had to come up with a place to put the pigs and cows that my wife keeps buying somewhere. Okay, next shot. This one is another building that I modeled that does exist. However, it was on the Chicago Northwestern in Doherty. And I think it's still there. I called on a customer down there for several years and decided that I better take pictures and do some measuring as much as I could before somebody tears that down, like some other buildings I've wanted to model have been torn down. So that's another building that, there again, it exists somewhere, just it didn't exist on my particular piece of railroad. Next picture. Okay, after we left Dinsdale there, we went through the bathroom and came out there at the left. And again, we got a oil dealer, a team track, an elevator, and we also got a scratch built feed mill there. That's a new one that I've built to replace an old cardstock one. I had to do something while we were shut down, so I've been upgrading a few buildings. That Milwaukee car is one that I built out of a Stan Rydarowitz kit. Hauls spent grain out of the breweries up in Milwaukee. Next picture. I see Barry joined us, but he's still eating. Another elevator. There again, I took a picture of one I liked, built that. Have no idea what was actually in Rhinebeck, which is where we're at now. The two cars sitting up off into the right are sitting on the one interchange on this line, and that was to the Chicago Great Western, which was the only one that actually interchanged along this area. Okay, we can go on to the next picture. I don't want to take all Clark's time up here. There's a departing shot out of Rhinebeck. Okay, next town was going to be Grundy Center. I don't know if that had all of this much in there, but I modeled it anyway. Couple industries, a fertilizer place. Most all of it scratch built except for that little brick building down front. Go on to the next one there. It shows a little more of the town. That elevator was a little bit, it was a different one enough that I had to make a model of it. I've had that for a lot of years. Don't remember where I even saw the original drawing of it. Okay, next picture up. There's heading on out of town. A couple of those gas stations I showed here a long time ago. And into the next town, which is through a wall. And Archer Corporation is a scratch build. I've had that for several years. I built that from plans, and I don't remember if it was RMC or Model Railroader. And within the last year or two, I saw somebody is building that commercially and making it available. The rest of the stuff in the town is all scratch built things. Next picture. Am I running for time, Greg?
You doing fine?
Okay, another scratch built elevator. The only building that isn't scratch built is that little down in the lower left corner is that little peaked roof, and that's a cast metal building. The rest of it's all been scratch built from one kind or another. Usually uses a building I saw somewhere. Go on to the next one. That's you're seeing the lift that comes down to make the roundabout to the rest of the layout here. You see the stairs coming down to the left, and that's usually flipped up and then let down when we start operating. The line off to the left was originally going to be a Chicago Great Western line, and I found out after I built the thing that I had looked at the map wrong. That's in the wrong spot, so I just used it as a runaround now. And going into the little town here, which is not much of a town, but it's there. It's Wellsburg. Team track, oil dealer, grain elevator, same as all the rest of them. And a lot of trees. Go on to the next one there, Greg. Should be, yeah, kind of the back. There's another one of the clay tile, actually two of them, gray tile silos. Okay, shoot the next picture. I think that one's gonna be, oh, okay. Oil dealer, grain elevator again, and then down through a couple bridges. And yeah, there's a really steep steep incline down at the end. I didn't put that down when I took the picture. It's a hell of a grade. They have trouble getting up that baby. Okay, on down. There, I let it down. Looks better. Okay, that's about 6 feet of just nothing but a couple rivers and bridges and some trees and grass and a whole bunch of cows running around and a few fishermen down in the river. Next picture is, next two pictures actually, this one and the next one. My wife wanted a spot to have a parade and a circus, and seeing as how she let me have just about all of the basement, I thought I'd let her have a few square feet. She didn't tell me I had to paint all the stuff though when I bought it, but it was fun putting it together. And like I said, she let me have the basement, so I don't argue. Okay, next shot. Okay, this is Cleves, the last town before Iowa Falls that would have been sitting where the little circus and everything is. But this works out better. Actually, my model railroad has more buildings in it than the actual town of Cleves does. I was there a few years ago when I shadowed the line, and there's a grain elevator and I think one house, and that's pretty much it anymore. Next slide. We should be coming around. Okay, there's a long shot of it. Okay, hit the next one, Greg. Scratch built elevators. This town had 2 or 3 other ones actually, but this town had a brick and tile work. So that's the one picture, the building down at the end there. And a team track naturally. No oil dealer here. I think the Wellsburg must service him. Okay, next slide is going to show a curve. The one closest to the gray ballast main line is the Chicago Northwestern staging, which takes place of the other one that I put in the wrong spot. And then there's 4 staging tracks there, 3 of them for the upper level, and 1 is just a surplus there to park stuff that's going to Sioux Falls. Next slide is that one disappearing into the trees is the Illinois Central interchange track. Okay, next slide, we're going into and through Iowa Falls. There's the mill, and that's the backside of the mill that's over in the yard. There was a doorway there, and I just built a mill right in the doorway, and it's got 2 faces, one in Iowa Falls and one in Benton Junction. Next slide is showing the main line, the passing siding, and the house track going through Iowa Falls. And down at the end, it runs around the curve and goes up into the upper level. And that is all of the lower level. And we need to give Clark some time. I better not go into the upper level.
Okay. Now we can go through it quickly.
Okay, go quickly then. Just buzz on around.
All right, here we go.
Exit, yep, there's the curve around. Going up the helix, you get up to the top of the helix. I did put a little town on top of the helix, Popejoy, so it wasn't completely bare. And it goes on around the track you see over there, a couple little towns and staging tracks down at the end. And then it continues around to the right. There's Galt, had a pickle factory there amongst just the normal grain elevator and team track. There's Clarion. They had 5 oil dealers there. I modeled 2 of them, and another scratch built depot and grain elevator on around the corner. And we're going to hit that George Roberts thing is an old, about 35 years old, Holgate and Reynolds cardstock that I've had for a very long time. It's one of the oldest and probably the last one I've got around. And over there by the grain elevator, it goes through the bathroom again on the 2nd level. It comes out at Bode, same old thing for Midwest little towns. Down at the right side, it track splits again, goes into staging for Sioux Falls. comes around here into a little town of Odison, through another wall, and at the end of the track goes into what I made the end of the track was West Bath. And that's it. Little, oh yeah, Sioux Chemical. You got it.
All right. Great job, Bob. You can unmute yourself if you got any questions, and then we'll move on to Clark.
Better get to Clark and give him some time. You did a good job putting that slide together, though.
Yeah. Good job, Bob. Enjoyed seeing that.
Thank you. Where'd Clark go?
I'm here now, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, there you are.
Okay, yeah, see, we're using the iPad for the first time, and my wife's been down here the whole time trying to make it work. So I think I can, and it was running out of batteries because it wasn't charged. So I think that I can take it loose, and I hope all I have to do, if I can figure out what to do with all this other crap, is, oh boy. I want to turn the camera around. Because right now you see me. Just a minute, I'm going to have to get some technical advice. You can talk to Bob.
Bob, I have a question. On that line, did you do Abbott or the Abbott crossing with them in St. L? Didn't do that. Okay. Roger Ward is intrigued with Abbott and Abbott Crossing, and he's been looking for a photo of the depot for a number of years now. So I've got a little bit, but not much. I got acquainted with that line when I was living in Eldora, just slightly. So I know, at least know where you're modeling. So.
All right, now's a good time to put yourself on speaker view instead of gallery view. If you had that, it's up in the right-hand corner of your screen. And that way, when Clark unmutes himself, we'll be able to see his camera in most of the majority of the screen.
You got it covered.
Where is it? There. Okay, there. All right. We good now?
Looking good.
Yes.
Yep, we can see.
Okay.
See the.
All right. All right. Now I'm going to try and do this so people don't need Dramamine. If we start out at, you can shut that upstairs one off, or at least the sound. If we start out at what the staging, which represents Marshalltown, Iowa, and we move along, you can see I've got train stage to run, and then racks of cars to swap out after each run. As we move along, there, I just added this drawer, if I can get to it. In the drawer, I put all of my extra stuff for the open loads, so they're not blocking. I've had them up here and they're always in the way. So I put that drawer in, got it at the rehab store for that and the hardware for $4. I'm gonna drop down here a little bit. These are the car cards for the different towns. Now my wife is in the picture. There, she's gone. Uh-oh. Can you guys still see me?
Yes.
Okay, good, because I see what I'm doing. I've got just a little picture at the bottom. Let me make it bigger, I think. That didn't work. Oh crap, now I'm completely gone. There, okay, I can work through this. Okay, we'll move along. Here I've got a desk, car cards for the trains, desk for doing work, slides, make it easier to get at. The engines, it depends on the year of the railroad, depends on which engine gets run. There's also Milwaukee stuff in here for something we'll get to later. Anyway, we go through a view block, leaving Marshalltown to Minerva Junction, and then we follow the actual line through kind of what I'll call rough country. I've been down here and rode along this a couple of times, and they follow Minerva Creek out of the Iowa River Valley. And for Iowa, it's fairly rough country. So there's hills, and you got to have the mile roads. The first area that I modeled was nothing more than a spur that ran into a gravel pit. The place was called Bromley. I'm not so sure that this was the actual depot that was there, but people said it was. So I built it, and that's what we're looking at. Then we move on again. Then the railroads, the creek splits off, and we follow Middle Minerva Creek, and eventually go through a bunch of little burgs I did model, and end up at the first, what the railroad called good stations, because they had business. And this is the town of Ziering. There were 3 oil dealers at Ziering. What's kind of interesting about them is this mobile station here must have come last, because they had to put their standpipe on the siding on the north side of the main, because there wasn't room on the siding on the south side to spot a tank car. So their line goes under the railroad to the north side, while the structure's on the south side. Standard Oil dealer with the Standard Oil building. There were 3 elevators in Ziering and a feed mill. The 2 elevators closest to it were both owned by Pulley Grain, but on my layout, being as I saved this feed mill from my previous layout, I named it Farmer's Elevator is what the name, so this is Farmer's Elevator on my layout. If we point it kind of this way, there's the station and related, the outhouse, a couple of, and a section building, and they also have some extra stuff laying around for the section crew. These 2 buildings, they don't exist anymore, but I took pictures of them, and I have aerial views of all these towns, so I can copy them as closely as I possibly can. But these were buildings that were actually in Ziering. I've got lots of pictures of the depot, all of them usually newer than around 48 or 50 that I model. The elevator, the office. What I did for the backdrop here is the actual town is elevated up above where the railroad is. The railroad runs down along the creek. So I took the Art Deco, or not the, what is it, Art Deco's, Downtown Deco, went to their website, copied off some stuff, took some pictures of Bob's buildings, and then printed them out and used them on the backdrop in order to get the back of his town seen, because there's no way you can take buildings now and backdate them 60 years. This elevator had an annex that was a crib style, but I like these metal plate elevator silos so well that I built those there instead. I also added this pole yard. There was an actual pole yard, I mean an actual facility there for the Iowa Light and Power. And so I took the liberty of adding this to there so another type of load could come in. There were government bends as we leave town. And then we cross over Highway 65. The ironic part is back in the mid-60s, I drove over this every weekend going north and south and crossed those tracks and hadn't a clue what I was looking at. Between Ziering, and then there's the town of McCallsburg, which I didn't model, over to Roland, which will be the next town we come to. The land is pretty typical Iowa undulating scenery, where you have cuts and fills, one after the other. I modeled this bridge is over Bear Creek by Roland, but it fit in here better. And as you can see, as we go around the curve, we got fills and cuts and more fills. The typical mile road that we're going to see, they're called mile roads because they're every mile. And on around, needed something at this end of the railroad. So when you're standing here, you have something to look at. So I put in a cornfield and besides the road. And then we move around, come around the rest of the curve on the center peninsula, and we come to Roland. Roland is the reason why I built the branch line. The track layout here is really, it's simple, but it's not easy. I call it simply complicated, all the track plans on the railroad. Now this is a Marshall Canning company. It's recognizable, but it's not exact copy because of the space that I had. The building was actually longer than this. The building still exists in really bad shape. There were some trees between it and the first street in town. Here's an elevator that I built with the crib annex, so I didn't want to do another one over at Ziering. This town was built before Ziering. I actually went to Google Earth and took a screenshot of this actual street in Roland, and then tried to fuse the buildings together, my model versus the real one. And then we go past here. On this side, I cut down the building so it wasn't so long. I made that, I think Doug was helpful in giving me drawings of cattle chutes or stock chutes. I put it there because there was a stockyard there, but after I built it, I find out it should have been east of town about 100 yards or 200 yards, but that's where it is on my layout. There's a Standard Oil dealer, and over here we have the new and the old Johnson grain companies. And in front, these buildings here are pretty much copies of what was actually there. But I'm going to bring the camera back and bring it over here so you can see the layout in the town. There's a passing siding and there's a spur track that's up on a hump. And when you come into town, this is a facing points. So you drop your cars on the siding and then you work the town on your way back. But that raised, I went down there and this is all flat land now. All this stuff is gone. But in looking around to the north, you could see that there was a ridge that went through here and they actually cut it out for the main and the siding, but left it for that stub track, which explains why there's a hump in it. Okay, so we move along here, we're coming down. This is another lumberyard storage building and the depot. Last Saturday, we had a virtual RPM, and I had a mini kit from Woodland Scenics. So in between the different presentations, I built that little oil facility there for the Carmen and section crew. And then we move on between Roland and Story City. The land is flat, so we're moving along on flat, basically cornfields.
You got a
Till we
minute
come
left,
to
Clark.
just east of Story. Pardon?
You got a minute left.
Oh, okay. Then we get to the Skunk River, and then on in. I'm going to go fast. On into Story City, which is really simple. There's like 3 or 4 switches. This company here, the only thing I know that was actually there was this building. I built this lumberyard. The only thing I know was actually there was a shed. The ramp that was behind was actually over here because they tore the switch out and they placed the ramp there. The depot, which is assumingly abandoned at that time, plus some section crew stuff. We have the butter tub plant. We can talk about what a butter tub is later. They also sold coal, they sold roofing, they sold furnaces. The elevator and its